There comes a moment in life when all the noise fades away, not because the world has become silent, but because you have finally heard the truth you have always tried to escape. No one is coming to save you. No one can live the days you have wasted, correct the decisions you have avoided, or build the dream that you have not yet been brave enough to protect. You can wait for a guide, a perfect opportunity, or a sign from life, but the longer you wait, the more of your future you surrender to delay. Awakening is not gentle. It does not arrive as comfort. It comes like a blow to your pride, forcing you to look directly at the distance between who you are now and who you once promised to become. You begin to realize that your excuses have never protected you. They have only made your prison more comfortable. You tell yourself that you are not ready, that the circumstances are not right, that other people have hurt you, that the past has taken too much from you. All of that may be true, but no matter how unfair the past has been, the future is still waiting for an answer from you. Life does not ask how you were treated. Life asks what you will do with what remains. This is where responsibility begins. It does not begin by denying your pain, but by refusing to let your pain choose your direction. It does not begin by pretending to be strong, but by standing up even while everything inside you is still trembling. The weak seek certainty before they act. The mature understand that certainty appears only after they have walked for a long time. Your path may have no applause. No one will see the mornings when you wake up with a heavy mind. No one will know how hard you must fight to keep yourself from returning to your old habits. But it is in those moments without an audience that a new identity begins to form. You do not need the whole world to believe in you. You need to stop betraying the promises you make to yourself. Every time you say you will act and then quit, you teach your mind that your words have no value. Every time you choose comfort instead of responsibility, you quietly vote for the weaker version of yourself that you claim you want to overcome. Awakening is not a few minutes of excitement. It is the decision to stop living the way you have been living. It is the moment when you stop asking who will help you and begin asking who you must become in order to create your own way forward. You may be far from where you want to be. That matters less than whether you are facing the right direction today. One small step taken in truth is stronger than 1,000 plans built on self-deception. You do not need to transform your entire life in one night. You only need to end the negotiation with the weaker part of yourself. When the voice inside tells you to wait a little longer, remember that time does not stand still until you are ready. When fear tells you that you may fail, remember that the greatest failure is reaching the end of your life without ever attempting to become the person you could have been. Today can be the point where you stop drifting. No one is coming to hold your hand and walk the road for you, but that is not a curse. It is liberation. When you stop waiting for others, you begin to recognize the strength that has always existed within you. You may not yet be strong, disciplined, or certain of how far you must go, but you can begin. And sometimes the most courageous act is not conquering the world. It is looking into the mirror, accepting the truth, and saying that from this day forward, this life is my responsibility. The moment you accept that your life is your responsibility, the road does not suddenly become easier. In many ways it becomes harder because you can no longer hide behind excuses. You can no longer blame the weather while refusing to build shelter. You can no longer curse the darkness while keeping your own hands away from the flame. Once you awaken, the storms you once avoided begin to reveal themselves. The unpaid price of your choices stands before you. The habits you ignored demand to be confronted. The fears you buried rise from the ground and wait for you at the entrance of the path. This is where many people turn back. They love the idea of transformation, but they are not prepared for the discomfort that transformation requires. They want strength without resistance, wisdom without failure, and confidence without ever walking through uncertainty. But no tree develops deep roots beneath a calm sky. Roots travel downward because the wind forces them to search for something stronger than the surface. In the same way, your character grows when life removes the support you depended on and asks whether you can still stand. The storm is not interested in your plans. It does not care how motivated you felt yesterday. It comes without permission through rejection, disappointment, loneliness, financial pressure, betrayal, loss, and the quiet fear that your effort may never be enough. In those moments, you will feel the temptation to escape. You will want distraction instead of reflection, comfort instead of growth, and sympathy instead of responsibility. You may search for someone who will tell you that you have suffered enough, that you are allowed to stop, that your past has given you a permanent reason to remain where you are. But the storm is not asking whether your pain is fair. It is asking what kind of person will emerge from it. Pain can make you bitter, or it can make you deeper. Failure can become proof that you are powerless, or it can become instruction for your next attempt. Loneliness can convince you that you have been abandoned, or it can become the silence in which you finally meet yourself. The meaning of the storm is not fixed. Your response gives it meaning. When a strong wind strikes a weak structure, it exposes every place that was never built correctly. This exposure can feel cruel, but it is also honest. The storm shows you where discipline is missing, where your confidence depends on praise, where your peace disappears when life refuses to obey you. Do not run from that knowledge. What is revealed can be rebuilt. What remains hidden will continue to control you. There will be nights when progress feels invisible. There will be mornings when your body rises, but your spirit wants to remain on the floor. These are not interruptions in the journey. These are the journey. Strength is not formed when everything cooperates with you. Strength is formed when nothing cooperates, and you still choose the next right action. You do not need to feel fearless. You need to stop treating fear as a command. You do not need to enjoy the pressure. You need to understand that pressure is showing you what still needs training. Stand inside the discomfort long enough to learn from it. Ask what this moment is exposing. Ask what habit must end. What weakness must be strengthened? What truth must finally be accepted? A storm can destroy what is shallow, but it cannot uproot what has learned to grow deep. Every difficult season is inviting you beneath the surface, away from appearances, away from the approval of others, away from the fragile identity that survives only when life is easy. This is why solitude matters. Snorts when the crowd disappears. You can no longer perform strength. You must build it. When no one is watching, you discover whether your promises are real. When no one is coming to encourage you, you learn how to become the voice that leads you forward. The storm will not last forever, but what you build within it may remain for the rest of your life. Do not ask for a path without wind. Ask for roots that cannot be moved. Do not ask for a life without pain. Ask for the wisdom to transform pain into power. The awakening showed you that no one was coming to save you. The storm now teaches you why that truth is a gift, because every step you take without rescue becomes evidence that you can trust yourself. And from that trust, a new battle begins. The battle between the comfort that keeps you small and the discipline that will carry you beyond the storm. The storm may have taught you that you can survive without rescue, but survival alone is not enough. Once the wind begins to settle, another enemy appears. Quieter than fear and more dangerous, it speaks in your own voice. It tells you to rest a little longer, to begin tomorrow, to wait until you feel ready. It sounds reasonable. It sounds gentle. It promises relief, but comfort rarely announces the price it will demand later. Every time you choose what is easy over what is necessary, you strengthen the part of yourself that avoids effort. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken the trust that your future must depend on. This is the true battle of discipline. It is not fought in public. It is fought in the first moments of the morning, when the bed feels warmer than your purpose. It is fought when the work becomes repetitive, when no one is praising you, when progress is too small to be seen. Comfort says that one missed day will not matter. Discipline says that identity is built through repetition. Comfort asks how you feel. Discipline asks what you committed to. The difference between these two voices may seem small in a single moment, but over time, one builds a prison clear's throat, and the other builds a path. You must understand that discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect expressed through action. It is the decision to honor your word even when your emotions change. Motivation can open the door, but it cannot carry you across the distance. Motivation rises and falls like weather. Discipline becomes the ground beneath your feet. When you act only when you feel inspired, your life remains controlled by temporary emotion. When you act because the action is right, you begin to control yourself. This is where confidence is truly born. Confidence is not created by repeating that you are strong. It is created when your mind gathers evidence that you can rely on yourself. You said you would wake up and you did. You said you would train and you trained. You said you would study, work, save, practice, all remained silent. And you kept your word. Each fulfilled promise becomes a stone in the foundation of your character. Each broken promise becomes a crack. The world may not see these moments, but your mind records all of them. It remembers whether your commands have meaning. It learns whether discomfort can make you retreat. This is why small acts matter. You are not merely completing a task. You are teaching yourself who is in control. There will be days when the weaker voice becomes persuasive. It will remind you of how tired you are. It will compare your progress with others. It will tell you that you deserve ease because life has already been difficult. Listen carefully because comfort often uses truth to create surrender. Yes, you may be tired. Yes, the path may be unfair. Yes, others may have advantages you never received. But none of these truths can build the life you want. Only action can do that. Discipline does not require cruelty. It requires clarity. Rest when rest serves the mission. Pause when the pause restores your strength, but do not confuse recovery with escape. One renews you. The other slowly erases your direction. Learn to recognize the difference. The disciplined person is not someone who never feels resistance. The disciplined person feels resistance and moves with it. Courage does not remove fear. Discipline does not remove desire. It places purpose above both. You do not need to win the entire war today. You need to win the next decision. Stand up when you said you would stand. Begin before your mind creates another reason. Finish one task before seeking another distraction. These victories may appear insignificant, but they are changing the command structure within you. The old self is losing authority. The new self is learning to lead. And as these small victories begin to accumulate, something invisible starts to happen. The effort that once seemed too small to matter begins to gather weight, clears throat, and the quiet power of daily improvement starts shaping a future that comfort could never create. What begins as one small victory rarely looks powerful. It may be 1 hour of study after a long day, one training session when no one is watching, one page written while the world is sleeping, one decision to remain focused when distraction is easier. These actions do not create applause. They do not immediately change your circumstances. They often feel too small to matter. But this is where most people misunderstand transformation. They believe success begins when results become visible. In truth, success begins long before anyone can see it. A seed does not break the surface on the day it begins to grow. For a long time it works in darkness, it sends roots downward, it gathers strength, it prepares for future that cannot yet be measured. Your life changes in the same way. Before your body becomes stronger, your habits must become consistent. Before your confidence becomes visible, your promises must be kept. Before your future changes, your ordinary days must change. This is the power of the invisible. It is the quiet force created by repeated actions that seem insignificant in the moment. 1% of improvement does not impress the impatient mind. It does not feel dramatic enough. It does not satisfy the desire for immediate proof. But when that improvement is repeated, it begins to multiply. Knowledge grows upon knowledge. Strength grows upon strength. Focus becomes easier because it has been practiced. Discipline becomes more natural because it has been chosen again and again. What once required great effort slowly becomes part of your identity. This is how the compound effect works. It does not reward intensity that appears once. It rewards consistency that remains. A person who gives everything for 3 days and disappears has not built momentum. A person who gives a little every day is creating a force that time will eventually reveal. The danger is that the opposite is also true. 1 day of delay appears harmless. 1 broken promise seems easy to excuse. 1 hour lost to distraction feels unimportant. But repeated neglect also compounds. Weakness grows quietly. Regret gathers in small pieces. A future is rarely destroyed by 1 dramatic failure. It is usually abandoned through ordinary decisions that were repeated without awareness. This is why you must respect the small choice. Every action is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every repeated behavior strengthens the direction. You are always building something even when you believe nothing is happening. The question is whether you are building freedom or dependence, strength or weakness, clarity or confusion. There will be seasons when your effort produces no visible reward. You will work and still feel behind. You will train and still feel weak. You will remain disciplined and still wonder whether the path is working. These seasons test whether your commitment depends on evidence. Anyone can continue when success is obvious. Character is revealed when progress is hidden. The farmer does not dig up the seed every morning to see whether it has grown. The farmer waters the soil and trusts the process. You must learn the same patience. Do the work without demanding immediate recognition. Continue without needing the world to confirm that you are changing. The invisible phase is not empty. It is preparation. It is where your roots become strong enough to carry what you are asking life to give you. Many people want greater opportunities, but they have not built the capacity to hold them. They want influence without wisdom, wealth without discipline, respect without character. But life often delays the visible result until the invisible structure is ready. This delay is not rejection. It may be protection. It may be the period in which you are becoming strong enough not to destroy what you receive. So honor the unseen work. Honor the morning routine, the repeated practice, the money saved, the temptation resisted, the hour used well. These are not minor details. They are the architecture of your future. One day, people may look at your results and call them sudden. They will not see the thousands of quiet choices that made those results possible. They will see the tree, but not the years spent growing roots. Let them misunderstand. Your task is not to appear successful. Your task is to become capable. Keep building when no one notices. Keep improving when no one praises you. Keep snorts moving when the distance ahead still feels uncertain. The invisible work is teaching you patience, sharpening your discipline, and preparing you for greater responsibility. Because once you understand that your future is being shaped by your smallest repeated choices, you can no longer blame chance for the direction of your life. You must decide whether you will continue handing your power to circumstances or finally claim complete ownership of the person you are becoming. The moment you understand that your smallest repeated choices are shaping your future, blame becomes impossible to carry without consequence. You begin to see that every excuse has a hidden cost. It may protect your pride for a moment, but it steals your power for much longer. When you blame your past, your family, your circumstances, your failures, or the people who disappointed you, you place the direction of your life into hands that may never return it. You tell yourself that change cannot begin until something outside you changes first. This is how a person remains trapped while believing the prison belongs to someone else. Ownership begins when you stop asking who caused the wound and start asking who will heal it. It begins when you say that what happened may not have been your choice, but what happens next is now your responsibility. This does not excuse injustice. It does not deny betrayal. It does not pretend that every person begins with the same opportunities. It simply recognizes a deeper truth. You cannot control every event, but you can control whether that event becomes your identity. The past may explain your pain, but it must not become permission to abandon your future. Responsibility is not a burden placed upon you by life. It is the authority to act. The person who accepts no responsibility also possesses no power. The person who accepts complete responsibility may feel the weight of truth, but also discovers the freedom to move. This is why ownership can feel painful at first. It removes the comfort of excuses. It forces you to look at the habits you allowed, the standards you lowered, the conversations you avoided, and the years you surrendered to fear. But pain created by truth is different from pain created by denial. One leads to transformation, the other repeats itself. You must become willing to say that your current life is partly the result of choices you made, choices you delayed, and choices you allowed others to make for you. This admission is not self-hatred, it is self-honesty. You cannot rebuild what you refuse to examine. You cannot strengthen the areas you keep defending. Ownership asks you to stand before your life without decoration and see clearly what must change. Perhaps you trusted the wrong person. Perhaps you waited too long. Perhaps you quit when difficulty arrived. Perhaps you knew the right action and still chose comfort. Admit it without cruelty. Learn from it without becoming its prisoner. Shame keeps the mind focused on what cannot be changed. Responsibility directs the mind toward what can be done now. The question is no longer why this happened to you. The question becomes what this moment requires from you. Maybe it requires an apology. Maybe it requires a boundary. Maybe it requires that you begin again with less pride and more patience. Maybe it requires that you walk away from a pattern that has controlled you for years. Whatever the answer is, ownership gives you the courage to act without waiting for permission. There is great strength in the sentence, "My life is my responsibility." It means that your peace is no longer dependent on an apology that may never come. Your progress is no longer dependent on support that may never appear. Your discipline is no longer dependent on perfect conditions. You stop negotiating with circumstances and begin working with what is available. You may not have every resource, but you have the next decision. You may not know the entire path, but you can take the next honest step. You may not be able to recover every lost year, but you can stop losing this day. This is how ownership changes destiny, not through one grand declaration, but through 1,000 moments in which you refuse to surrender your authority. You stop saying that life made you this way. You begin saying that life tested you, and now you will decide what the test creates. The storm did not come to define you. The discipline was not built to impress others. The invisible work was not performed for praise. All of it was preparing you for this moment, the moment when you understand that freedom begins when blame ends. And once you reclaim responsibility for your direction, the next task becomes unavoidable. You must train the mind that will guide every decision, interpret every hardship, and determine whether your pain becomes weakness or wisdom. Once you reclaim responsibility for your direction, you must face the force that shapes every step you take. Your own mind, the mind can become a prison or it can become a weapon. It can repeat every fear you have collected, or it can be trained to create courage where none existed before. Most people believe their reactions are natural and fixed. They say that they are simply anxious, angry, weak, impatient, or afraid. But a reaction, repeated often enough, becomes a habit, and a habit left unchallenged begins to look like identity. This is why mindset training is not positive thinking. It is disciplined interpretation. It is the practice of deciding what an event will mean before emotion turns it into a command. Rejection can mean that you are unworthy, or it can mean that you must improve. Failure can mean that the path is closed, or it can reveal where your preparation was incomplete. Pain can become evidence that life is against you, or it can become the fire that removes weakness. The event may remain the same, but the meaning you give it determines your next action. A warrior does not control the arrival of difficulty. A warrior trains the response before difficulty arrives. This training begins in small moments. When irritation appears, you practice restraint. When fear rises, you practice movement. When uncertainty speaks, you return to what can be done now. Each time you choose a deliberate response instead of an automatic reaction, the mind becomes stronger. Courage is not something you discover one day. It is a muscle built every time you move while fear is present. Patience is not a gift. It is trained every time you refuse to abandon the process because the reward is delayed. Focus is not a personality trait. It grows every time you bring your attention back after distraction. The warrior mindset is built through repetition. Just like the body, you would not expect strength from a muscle that has never carried weight. Do not expect emotional strength from a mind that has always escaped discomfort. You must give the mind resistance. Sit with silence instead of reaching for noise. Complete the difficult task before rewarding yourself. Hear criticism without immediately defending your pride. Remain steady when others misunderstand you. These moments are the training ground. The world may see only a calm face, but beneath that calm an old reaction is being defeated. This does not mean suppressing emotion. Suppression hides what must be understood. Training allows emotion to be felt without surrendering authority. Anger may enter, but it does not choose your words. Fear may appear, but it does not choose your direction. Sadness may remain, but it does not decide that your life has no purpose. You are not trying to become numb. You are learning to become stable. Stability is the ability to feel deeply without being carried away by every feeling. This requires awareness. Before reacting, pause it. Before speaking, observe it. Before believing every thought, ask whether it is true, useful, and worthy of leading you. Not every thought deserves obedience. Some thoughts are echoes of old wounds. Some are habits of fear. Some were placed in you by people who never understood your potential. Your task is to examine them, not to worship them. The trained mind becomes selective. It does not accept every inner voice as wisdom. It chooses the voice that serves truth, growth, and purpose. There will still be days when the old patterns return. Do not mistake their return for defeat. A warrior is not someone who never struggles. A warrior is someone who recognizes the struggle and returns to the practice. Return to your breath. Return to your principles. Return to the next action. Every return strengthens the path you want your mind to follow. Over time, what once overwhelmed you begins to lose its authority. Rejection becomes information. Delay becomes preparation. Solitude becomes clarity. Pressure becomes training. You stop asking why life is testing you and begin asking what the test is developing within you. This shift changes everything. You no longer waste pain. You convert it into wisdom. You no longer fear resistance. You use it to measure your growth. The mind that once begged for rescue now knows how to lead itself. And when that mind becomes disciplined, the person you were begins to fall away. In the silence created by this training, a new identity starts to rise. One built not from promises but from evidence. One strong enough to stand beside the person you are meant to become. A new identity does not rise with noise. It does not announce itself to the world. It appears quietly through the way you stand when pressure returns, through the way you speak when anger invites you to lose control, through the way you continue when no one is watching. One day, you realize that the person who once begged for rescue is no longer leading your life. The excuses have become weaker. The fear is still present, but it no longer holds the final authority. You have not become perfect. You have become reliable. You have become someone who can be trusted with difficulty, responsibility, and a greater future. Imagine standing face to face with the person you will become 5 years from now. Look carefully at that person. Notice the calm in the eyes, the strength in the posture, the clarity in the voice. That person is not a stranger. That person is the result of every decision you are making today. Every morning you rise when comfort tells you to remain still, you move closer. Every promise you keep, every distraction you resist, every painful lesson you accept, you shape that future identity. But the opposite is also true. Every day you surrender to the old patterns. You create distance between yourself and the life you claim to desire. Your future self is not waiting at the end of time as a guaranteed reward. That person must be built. The meeting between who you are and who you could become is taking place in every ordinary moment. You do not reach that future through wishes. You reach it through standards. You reach it through the private decisions that no one celebrates. The lonely path was never a punishment. It was preparation. The silence was teaching you to hear your own truth. The storms were teaching you to stand without support. Discipline was teaching you to trust your word. The invisible work was teaching you patience. Responsibility was returning your power. The training of the mind was teaching you how to turn pain into wisdom. Nothing was wasted. Every difficult season was removing a layer of the person you could no longer afford to be. You may have believed that life was breaking you, but life was revealing what needed to be rebuilt. Now the question is not whether you have suffered. The question is whether you will honor what the suffering taught you. Do not return to the smaller life simply because it is familiar. Familiar does not mean safe. Familiar can be the cage that keeps potential asleep. The new self will often feel uncomfortable because it requires different choices, different boundaries, different habits, and sometimes different relationships. You may have to disappoint people who benefited from your weakness. You may have to walk away from places that only recognize the old version of you. You may have to remain alone until your environment matches your direction. Do not fear this distance. Growth creates separation before it creates alignment. A tree rising above the ground must leave the darkness of the seed behind. You cannot carry every part of your former identity into the future. Some habits must end, some beliefs must be buried. Some excuses must never be spoken again. This is not loss, it is release. The person you are becoming needs space to breathe. Let your actions become the evidence of your transformation. Do not explain every change. Do not seek permission to become stronger. Do not waste energy proving your progress to those committed to misunderstanding you. Continue the work. Let your calm speak. Let your discipline speak. Let your results speak when the time is right. The strongest transformation does not demand attention. It becomes impossible to ignore. There will still be storms. There will still be moments when the old voice returns and asks you to abandon the path. But now you know that discomfort is not a signal to retreat. It is often the doorway to growth. You know that fear does not mean stop. You know that loneliness does not mean abandonment. You know that slow progress is still progress. Most importantly, you know that no one is coming to build your life for you. And you no longer need them to. You have found the power that waiting once concealed. Stand now beside the person you promised to become. Not in imagination, but in action. Choose as that person would choose. Speak as that person would speak. Walk as that person would walk. Your future is not calling you from a distant place. It is being created beneath your feet. Take the next step with courage. The road may remain difficult, but you are no longer the person who first entered it.